Welcome back to the Costello Coaching Podcast. I'm Tommy Costello with Dr. Stephen Frueh. Dr. Frueh is a dual PhD in theology and psychology who works with me on my own personal growth and development. I always believe that it's best to have coaches in your life. The best athletes, the best performers, all the best in the world have coaches. And for me, coaching others and inspiring others and working with others physically, mentally, emotionally, biomechanically, and all the different ways that I work with them, I need a coach too. And Stephen is that for me. He's my coach. And so I'm so blessed to have his presence on this podcast. Today we're going to break down the discarded self and what that means. You know, I have someone that listens to this podcast. He's a pediatric cardiologist, specialist, incredible at what he does. I respect him as a friend and as a parent and just a person that I love. And he was sitting with me and he was talking to me. He said, you know, I listen to all your podcasts and they're really good. And I really enjoy them. They might be just a lot for a high school level athlete to digest. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay because someone that I've really looking up to as a person in the development world is a guy named Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn was Tony Robbins' mentor. And in one of his seminars in actually 1988 in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, he talks about your library and your library of books. And you know what he says in that library, Stephen? He says that you got to have some books that are hard to understand, to challenge yourself, to reach for it. And so if we were on here just giving cookie-cutter advice that was maybe very tactical or very easy to consume, I feel like it would just be like the rest of them. So with these podcasts, listen and pull what you can from them and start to digest the hard stuff, and then you'll end up seeing the easier stuff that much more clearly. So I know that's a long intro, but I wanted to share that before we began.
I appreciate it. You know, that idea right there that you just shared, you know, I've worked with men for 40 years, and I love poetry, but not the kind of poetry they gave us in high school, you know, which was just way beyond me and everybody else I knew in high school. Today I love Shakespeare, but I didn't love Shakespeare then. It was too complex. So what I do is I say to a man, I got a man right now, he runs companies very successfully, and I say, do you ever read poetry? He says, oh, Stephen, don't give me that thing about poetry. I don't want anything to do with poetry. I don't understand any of it. So I say to him, when Moses was told in the way he was told, do you know who Moses is? Old Testament hero? When Moses was told in the way he was told, take off your shoes, he grew pale by that simple reminder of fire in the dusty earth. He never recovered his complicated way of loving again. Now, the poem goes on. I said, that's a poem. Can you get into that? He goes, whoa, that's a poem? I say, yeah, it's by David White. There's a lot of poetry that speaks to where we are, but we haven't been around people who know that and talk about it. So this kind of conversation today that Tommy and I are doing about the discarded self, if you're 14, 15, 16, 17, that phrase may not ring to you. You might say, oh, good, not that. But I want to encourage you to do what Tommy just said, to listen to it, because every one of us, if you're 5 years old, you were being taught to be a good boy. If you were 8 years old, you were taught to shut up and respect your teacher, or respect your priest or your pastor or your rabbi or whoever. All of us men and women have been shaped since we were little to be who the culture wants us to be. The culture can be called your family. The culture can be called your religion. The culture can be called education, your school. You've been shaped and shaped and shaped and shaped, and we call that being a good boy or being a good girl. Now, in athletics, guess what? You have a lot of people influencing you to be coachable, to do it this way, to understand what coaching is about and what the team is about. That's all good stuff. But there's a danger in that if you give up your own way of seeing the world, if you give up your own way of speaking or your own way of catching a pass or your own way of being a teammate, that's equally important to the coach's point of view. Smart coaches know that. I've talked to smart coaches who say the most important thing is for me to be able to hear what my player is saying and to be able to include it in what we're doing. Man I know and love, he coached boys in football in, I guess, 9, 10, 11, 12, that age, your dad?
Yeah, 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. He focused on being able to hear what his players were saying, not telling them what was wrong with them, but hearing what was right with them and what they wanted to do that could make the game, and he's very, very successful, make the game easier for them. So the discarded self is about your kind of paying attention to what you've let go in order to be accepted, what you've let go in order to have a standing ovation, say, from your parents or your school teachers. What part of yourself? Was it your anger? Was it your genius? Was it a part of yourself where you say, gee, I know the answer to that, but you didn't say it? You didn't say it because you'd get shamed, so you kept it in. You kept in your genius, and you suffered for it because now, at 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever you are, that genius is the most critical thing that you can be in touch with.
So what is their genius?
Well, I can't answer that. They have to answer it. We each.
So
have
you
to
ask
answer
yourself, what is your genius?
Yeah.
What is your genius, Stephen?
Yeah, from the time I was 3 and 4 and 5, I was very, very interested in what was wrong in my family and how I could cheer them up, how I could help. I was very interested in how I could help. When I was 5, I used to walk around the house singing.
So
and
your
making
genius
jokes.
is helping people?
Yeah, that's a piece of it, is listening. I listened, and I tried to cheer them up.
So how do you give that away?
Then giving that up is when the family says, oh, you're a motor mouth, you talk too much. Or you're in school and you see something, the way the teacher just shamed one of the other students, and you want to say something, but you don't dare because you don't have the right to do that, the right to speak. So you slowly suppress that. You slowly compress, push it down. Push it down inside yourself. Try to be good. Try to be nice. Don't talk to your father that way. Don't talk to your mother that way. Don't talk to your teacher that way. That stuff.
Okay. Let's get out of using the family dynamic examples.
Okay.
And get into more of a tactical way that athletes can kind of understand, because that could be a little confusing. Now, I understand what you're saying with that because of all the work that we've done.
Yeah.
But when you use the example of the way that you respond to your father or respond to your mother, what Stephen's saying is you could use that kind of emotional or psychological response in response to your coaching staff or anybody in authority.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
in psychology, the mother-father play a figurative role
That's a good word, figurative role.
More than an actual role.
Yes.
So he's
true.
not criticizing your mom or dad here.
That's absolutely right on. Well said.
So there's just a learning curve maybe for that understanding
Yes.
that I want to address.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good because the way the old psychologist said it is it's not only about your mother, but mothers are everywhere. You date a mother, you have a school teacher who's a mother, women are everywhere. You have to find a way, if you're a guy, you have to find a way to deal with women in an honorable and respectful and truthful way, just like she has to find a way to deal with men. Fathers are everywhere, brothers are everywhere. That
brings up you talking about dropping some of your best self.
Yes.
And sometimes we drop some of our best selves in order to fit in.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to put it, is that a lot of times people lose what's natural about them in order to fit in and to blend in. And that's why the person who's number one is usually odd. And that's a figurative speech. But, the person that is so special is unique.
Yeah.
They either perform at a super high level because they do something unique, or they're an outstanding citizen because they're so unique in a certain way. So you phrase this question in your notes and you say, if we have dropped parts of our best selves, how can we reclaim them? And pay attention to what you've abandoned along the way of your growing up. And what I see growing up as is fitting in, is how can you become more normal? Is growing up.
Yeah.
You graduate college. Can you get the 9-to-5 job? Can you make enough money? Can you pay for insurance? Can you pay for taxes? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?
We call that the seduction.
You're getting seduced.
Yeah.
And so what's really tough for athletes is a lot of the times they have to buy into a culture, which is great because we all want to be a part of a great culture. But sometimes they lose their ability to perform on what is their own greatness because they're trying to fit into maybe a system. So there's a fine balancing act of blending into a culture, but then maintaining your own personal authority and keeping your own greatness, or as you like to say, genius.
Yeah.
So for someone who is in that situation, what are the questions that they could be asking themselves to make sure that they're maintaining their personal genius?
Well, I think it wouldn't be the questions. It would be the observations. Like you find yourself in a classroom and you say, the teacher says something and you say to yourself, I don't agree with that. Then you observe that because is there room for me to have my unique opinion in this classroom or not? Just observing it strengthens you recovering your own genius. You find yourself on a date. If you're a girl with a guy and he says, come on, let's go for a ride in my car, and he's had a couple beers. If you're my daughter, I want you to notice that he's had a couple beers, and you say, no, thank you. You notice it. If you don't say no, thank you, when you get in his car, you've given up a piece of yourself because it's dangerous to be in a car with a young man who's had a couple beers. So you have to have that standard.
So in the let's call it the football context,
Yes.
Who is the man with a couple beers?
That's pretty good. The coach can be the man who thinks,
What if it's a teammate?
or a teammate who thinks winning's more important than your integrity.
Yeah.
That guy. Well, you say, I hurt my leg. My knee hurts. You say, play hurt. Tommy's a good guy. He plays hurt. I would say if I'm on that coaching staff, no. Tommy's a fool if he plays hurt.
Yeah.
He's going to get more hurt. He's going to do damage to himself. So he has to be looking for the right voice.
And two, that I like to say, take note. Take note. So if someone is that for you in your life where they're that role where they know you're hurt and they say, no, you're going to stay out there anyways. You're going to suck it up.
Yeah. Suck it up.
And you're really hurt.
Yeah.
And you're clearly saying to them that you're really hurt and they're saying, no, you're being soft. Get through it. Figure it out.
Yeah.
I would tally that in my brain and say, you're not someone that I trust.
Right.
And don't fall into a trap of getting coached by that person.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I agree.
So if you're utilizing a coach for improvement, for you to get better, and they have clearly identified that they're a person who is not going to do that, for example, saying you're going to play while you're hurt, that does not make you better. That makes you worse.
Yes.
That jeopardizes you for not only the moment, but the future. So take note, does that person really have the best interest in me and getting better, or is their interest in them? And if they think that way, everything else they say is nonsense too.
It is. There's a good example recently, very recently, with Colorado, and I don't want to overdo this thing about Deion Sanders, but they're really exceptional athlete. Travis Hunter, maybe?
Yep.
He's exceptional. I mean, he's exceptional in every way. And they were asking, and he was injured, had a lacerated liver, and they asked him if he's going to play this week against USC, which was a very big game for both teams. And Deion Sanders said, "We don't jeopardize our athletes' health. He's not. He's ready to play. He wants to play, but no, I'm not letting him play yet." It's that if you look for a coach who has your back, he's going to get the best performance out of you. He's going to get loyalty. He's going to get tribal consciousness with you, but he's not trying to make his own career based on your back. So, yes.
Yeah, so that keeps us in line, I think, with hearing your voice.
Yes.
And you break it down as your voice and listening to your voice.
Yes.
So explain how someone can hear their voice.
Well, Tommy says, explain that. Look, you all that are listening to this podcast, don't you know that you walk around with a conversation that's ongoing? The old comic Milton Berle or whoever it was said, of course, they say, you talk to yourself all the time. He said, yeah, I'm the most interesting person I know. It's like that. We all talk to ourselves. I'm driving here from a business meeting to come here to do this, and I have all these conversations going on. So I want to tune in to what's important in those. I'm not just thinking about the groceries I'm going to buy. I'm not just thinking about whether my car needs charging. I'm thinking about stuff, my relationship with Tommy, how this podcast works for you. Is it going to be good? Are we doing everything we can do? Do we do it right? I'm thinking about those things. If I start to notice what my conversation is, I'm listening to my inner voice. What's going on? I'm a little bit anxious. I want to do the very best I can do here for you. I want to do the very best I can do here for Tommy. That tells me about me.
That's and some when it it gets probably chalked up as mental emotional coaching. Sometimes if I have an athlete get really nervous or anxious before a performance or before competition, they'll have a lot of nervous energy. I will ask them to just be aware of it.
Yeah.
And be okay with it.
Yes.
And accept that you're nervous.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do. Yeah. And you're not trying to push it down. Yeah. You're not trying to run away from it. You're not trying to psych yourself out of it. You're experiencing a human emotion. I'm aware of that. Okay. Well, I'm still going to go out and compete and have fun and play my game.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be aware that I am feeling this, and that is more than enough. If you're just aware of it, that's more than enough.
That's well said. I agree.
So that has to do with the discarded self.
Yeah, sure.
Understanding where the voice is showing up. The voice might be showing up through anxiety, through fear. And you being aware of it is how you manage it or cope with it or do something with it or do nothing with it. And that is important to understand.
Well, I like your analogy about pitching the Buddha moment. I like that a great deal because Tommy talks about
the middle way.
The middle way, not attaching to the strike, not attaching to the ball in the dirt. Both of them, not attaching to either of them. You've already had 1 billion hours of coaching. You already have great desire to perform in excellence. You have all that you need, and you're on the mound. There's only 2 people in the whole game in the whole stadium. There's you and there's the hitter. That's all that's there. And you're looking at your pitch and you say, that was in the dirt. But the middle way says, I know all I need to know, and I'm as motivated as I need to be motivated. So, hey, body, hey, psyche, hey, self, we're pitching here, and it's just me and him. And then you're back in that middle space. I'm not pleasing the coach, my father, the other players. I am a pitcher. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a place of observing rather than judging.
Yeah.
I think judging has a lot of weight. Observation is very light.
Yeah.
And if you're observing something, you can just watch it and not have any thought associated with it. You're just observing. And if you're judging, all of a sudden it comes with expectations and a result. If I'm looking at you and I'm observing you, I'm saying, wow, he's there. That's who he is.
Yeah.
If I'm judging you, I'm saying, that hat, I'm not sure about that hat.
Right.
Those glasses, what's going on with those glasses? And that shirt, why'd you pick out that shirt? And as you can see, when I start to play with the words there and start to vocalize the thought patterns that people have, you can see why people walk around with a clouded mind.
Yes.
The judgment mind is the one that is clouded with so many statements, so many dialogues.
Right.
Where the mind that is observing is clear and present and calm. And so I want to help you athletes get there. I want to help you get to a point where you're observing rather than judging. Because in the state of observation, you're much more clear, you're much more aware. And in a place of judgment, you're clouded and you're congested and you're in a place of anxiety and fear. So learn to observe yourself, observe your performance, observe your competition rather than judge it.
Well, there's a thing called active listening. I don't know if we've talked about it before, but what active listening really comes down to is that a couple, man and woman, talking to each other about their relationship, they each get to talk 3 minutes or 5 minutes. The other person doesn't get to interrupt them. And they say, this is wrong with our relationship, and this, and I don't like this, and whatever. The other person's job is simply to listen. And when they're done, when the timer goes off and they've talked 5 minutes, the other person says, I hear you saying you don't like this.
Oh, I did this last night at practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this excites me. So the one of the coaches gave a really cool point. He said, guys, in baseball, as a hitter, you get 3 strikes, right? 1 strike goes to the umpire. The umpires are never good in baseball. So you say we tally 1 up to the umpire. Then there's 1 to the pitcher. Pitchers are good. We give 1 to the pitcher. The pitcher's going to throw a strike that's going to be one of the strikes. And then that 3rd one is yours. When that 3rd one comes, you don't know. It might be the 1st, 2nd, or the 3rd.
Yeah.
But you have to go after it. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is gold, what this guy is saying. This is so good. And I'm looking at the boys, and, for the most part, it looks like they're all listening.
Yeah.
And so I say, T-Bone, what did Coach just say there? He goes, well, he's saying that we need to be more aggressive when we're hitting. I said, oh, okay, that's what you heard. That's interesting. This is what I heard. I heard that we get 3 pitches when we come up to the plate. 1, the umpires aren't very good. 2, the pitchers are pretty good. And the 3rd one's ours. So every time we go to the plate, we're going to get a pitch. We must go get it. Is that the same as being aggressive? And he said,
That's what he said.
That's what I said to him.
Oh, that's what you said.
Is that the same as being aggressive? He goes, kinda. I said, yeah, it kinda is.
Yeah.
Meaning that we got to be aggressive to the one that we get.
Yeah.
But do you see how it's different than just being aggressive? And he goes, yeah, I do. So what I learned there is by simply asking the question of what did you hear?
Yeah.
Told me everything about what they're digesting. Because it's not about what I say. It's about what they comprehend and what they can use.
It is. It is. And if you play musical chairs, you'll see that over and over again. Because that, once you say, I heard you say this, and she says, yes, but no. And so you have that little conversation. Here's what I heard. She corrects you. Okay, tell me that again. You tell her that again. Yeah, I think I got you. She repeats it back to you. Then you flip the seats. You do musical chairs. You flip it. And then she says for so many minutes what she thinks about the relationship. And you say, I heard you saying, do I get you? Do I understand you? That's why it's called active listening, not passive listening.
Yep.
Active
We got to be
listening is-
active.
Yeah, is processing it. Do I
Yep.
understand you? Do
Yep.
I get it? If an athlete could say that to the coach, if the coach could say that to the athlete, what a team.
Exactly. That's a good environment.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's great. That's plenty for today.
Is it? We're
yeah,
already done?
Yeah.
Wow.
Understand the discarded self.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a lot of garbage in there,
Well, sure.
but
Of
there's some
course.
good stuff too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the 5 things.
Go ahead.
Know the difference between your yes and your no.
Yep.
That's 1. Know your why. Discover that. That's what Tommy was talking about. Discover your own genius. That's 2. Know what your standards are. Use that word to yourself. What are my standards? What are my standards for living in this house? What are my standards for being on this team? What are my standards for my own health? What are my standards for my friendships? What are my standards for my academics? What are my standards? That's a big area you can play with, and it gives you a lot of self-knowledge. Know your tribe. Invite people to be related to you in a much different level than you ever have. It's a truth-telling tribe. It's a loyalty tribe. It's a masterminding tribe. It's where people can challenge each other. Know that. That's a big, big deal. Did I miss one?
Nope. Your voice.
Your voice, yeah.
Well, we talked a lot about that.
Out of all of that will come your voice.
Very good.
It'll be a beautiful voice. It'll be an operatic voice. It'll be so beautiful people will just stop and listen to you. How come some people listen to him, they don't listen to me? Because my voice hasn't been developed yet. It's somebody else's voice. When you find your own voice, people will listen.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.